Same thing with Social Security. But again, as I already said, who's going to take that stand? Nobody wants to be seen as being against old people or against children or against whatever the battle cry is this week from the left. They want to seem like they're for everybody. And I get that. There is a legitimate reason to be concerned about political fallout from taking a stand like that, because there are literally millions of Americans now who have become so dependent on these programs that I don't think that they any longer believe that they could survive without them. Never mind what happened the multitude of years before they existed. But if you're going to defend it, if you're going to stand there and say, okay, let's try and fix this, if you're going to say, okay, if a doctor is charging this much for the service, they are entitled to what they should be charging, if you're going to stand up and make that argument, then if you're the Democrats saying, no, I don't want to do that, shouldn't you be doing it based on a financial argument or a constitutional argument? Although I know that's funny, a Democrat standing up for a constitutional argument. I know that is a little bit of a joke. But aren't those the merits that are supposed to be argued? I mean, the Democrats at the national level, and I keep pointing that out because I know personally some local Democrats that abhor abortion and refuse to stand up for it. Unfortunately, they're not at the national level and would probably get drummed out of the national party, quite honestly. But when I say that, I'm trying to make sure that everybody knows I'm not painting everyone with this broad brush. The so-called progressives, the humanists, the eugenicists, who are all about population control, they love abortion, especially abortion in the black community. They love it because those are the undesirables, according to them. I know somebody's going to take part of that quote, say, tell themselves black people are undesirables. That's not what I said, folks. But according to them, quotes that came from the lady that founded Planned Parenthood, she said this publicly. They're very clear about whose side they're on and what they're up to, what they want. Comes down to the basic premise here is they want to have an argument about American taxpayer dollars being spent to kill babies that haven't been born yet. How can you, with a clear conscience, stand up? How can you, with a clear conscience, stand up and say, yes, American taxpayer dollars should be spent to pay for killing unborn babies? I don't understand it. These people claim to be religious. Nancy Pelosi is supposed to be Catholic. Secretary of State Kerry, former senators, former I want to be the president, but I look too much like Lurch to get the job. Supposed to be Catholic. I mean, they're not even supposed to believe in contraception, let alone forcing Americans to have it, forcing American businesses to pay for it. They're still on board with that. Harry Reid is Mormon. How do these people not get excommunicated from their churches based on their public policy? How does that not happen? Why is it that these people are allowed to put on a face and talk the talk and not be required to walk the walk? I've had callers on here before talk about how you can't expect people to take a stand on an issue like that because the other side's just going to use it against them. Well, my response to that is fine, let them. I keep reminding people constantly now. It's become almost irritating. Even I'm starting to get nauseous of it, but I'm continuing to remind people that these people begged for that job. The least they can do is do it and do it the way it's supposed to be done. When somebody asks me, Nancy Pelosi, where do you have the constitutional authority to do something, the response should not be, ha, 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 are you serious? That's a legitimate response from the former Speaker of the House, the lady that at that time was literally 2 heartbeats away from becoming the president. Get away with that. I mean, it helps being in her district, I suppose. but she's far from the only national Democrat that would take the stage. But here, there are actually a little bit of a riff here. And my thinking here, probably in Nancy's case, is that she, as a member of the House, has a vested interest in trying to help move forward legislation so that she can look like she's trying to help save Medicare. The abortion thing can wait just a little bit. And that language that's in there for those community health centers, well, we'll find a way around it. I'm sure she's thinking that. But in the meanwhile, it only lasts for 2 years. That's her argument. And Nancy Mimi Pelosi has been seen as a stalwart knight in shining armor fighting the cause for going and killing your baby. Matt for America, great comment in the chat room. Forget the religious aspect for a moment. It's murder, no matter how you look at it. That's the statement. And, yeah, there are no bones about it. There's no two ways about it. You are ending a life. Not only should that not be condoned in America, but there should be moral outrage. See, there's the problem. The folks on the left are still trying to convince us that we're wrong for trying to have morals, let alone putting those morals and holding them up as an example and hoping that other people will follow that example. How dare you push your moral views on me? Well, if you showed some of your own, we might not have to. I'll just say that off the cuff. Naturally, I don't feel like anybody has the right to force their own moral values on to another person. Very un-American. But that doesn't mean that the nation as a whole shouldn't have a moral compass. It doesn't mean that the nation as a whole shouldn't hold itself up to a higher standard. Now, reeling back to the initial story, the budget itself actually, talking about the doctor fix being a big issue, unpaid for. The budget itself looks like it's going to be a bit of a fight. I mean, we've had infighting break out among the GOP over the military budget, part of it. Committee filled with some folks that claim to be fiscally minded. We'll see. They just want to cut spending wherever they can. So they're not looking to increase military spending. In fact, I think this bill as is being put forward as is has a little bit of a continued cutback from previous. Now, a group of Republicans outside of the committee has threatened to vote no on the floor if more money wasn't added to the proposed budget so that the Pentagon would have a little more cash. Members of the committee then threatened to kill the bill in committee if Tom Price, Republican from Georgia, happens to be the new chairman of the Budget Committee, if Tom Price tried to add the additional spending to the bill. So now, smart money would say that Price is going to offer the bill without the extra cash going to the Pentagon in order to get it out of committee, but still reaching out to those defense hawks with promises of the money finding its way back into the bill during reconciliation. Now, I don't know, but it sounds like procedural mumbo-jumbo, and sooner or later they have got to start writing clean bills and trying to pass them, and they've got to get along. And here's been the biggest problem with the GOP. Once they have control, once they have the majority, they still try to legislate like they don't. They start fighting with each other over who's a better Republican. The fiscal conservatives, the defense hawks, or even just the establishment folks that are far more concerned about winning elections than actually governing the country. And when that infighting erupts, suddenly Democrats are necessary to pass legislation. Kind of spooky. Mary, of course, in the chat room says that there are no clean bills. Haven't been in decades. I agree with you. if you want to get back to the business of running the country, though, I think we, the people, need to start demanding that they do that. Also, another comment in the chat room, the GOP has betrayed America and joined the Democrat Party against the American people. Well, the establishment Republicans certainly seem to have. There are mostly some younger guys, newbies, freshmen, folks that the American people sent during the midterms that do seem to be standing up for the right cause, but they're being squashed. We got to send them extra help. We've got to continue sending more people, and we've got to continue rotating out who we send. Because in that cesspool, even good men face that level of corruption and temptation time and time again. It gets harder and harder to avoid it. I think it's tough to stay a good man or woman in D.C. for very long. But switching gears again, we'll move away from that topic and we'll move into the presidential race while we're talking about good men. And that is evidently, if you haven't heard yet, Ted Cruz is expected to make a really big announcement tomorrow. He's slated to give a speech at Liberty University already, and, well, he's expected to go ahead and start his campaign for the Republican nomination. The Justice Department last week, of course, well, this past week, said that there's no doubt that Cruz can run despite having been born in Canada. Of course, some people have questioned his eligibility, and we've even had that question posed here. You know, we've talked about it, and as far as my understanding of the definition of natural-born citizen, I questioned his eligibility to run the office myself. But there is absolutely no question about the fact that his mother was born in Delaware, and now he's got a lot of folks, including lawyers from the Justice Department, former advocate generals for the Bush administration, current advocate general for Obama, all saying that the fact that his mother is an American citizen and that he was born with the intention of not staying in Canada all along, that fulfills the requirement. Now, I don't know if I buy that necessarily. And don't get me wrong, I think Cruz, based on what I've seen at this point, would make a great president. I think he would be a great defender of the Constitution. I think he stands on principles. But I don't know if that really is enough to fit that description. Again, I'm not a constitutional lawyer by any means. But honestly, I firmly question and doubt the constitutionality of the current crop of constitutional lawyers out there as is. I mean, isn't Barack supposed to be a constitutional scholar? Because it takes a scholar to know how to destroy it the fastest. I also suppose that they might be trying to make a backwater way for the folks that have questioned Barack Obama's citizenship since his arrival on the political scene as to whether or not he can hold office, because there was no doubt that his mother was in fact a citizen. So if that's enough, then suddenly it doesn't matter about Barack's birth certificate anymore, even though the only one we've ever seen has been an obvious fake. More so worried about, and and I've talked about this before, my concern more about Barack's eligibility doesn't come necessarily about whether he was or wasn't born in Hawaii, which there's no real evidence that he was, but as to whether or not he ever got his citizenship back after going to Indonesia. Indonesia does not have a dual citizenship status. When Mommy and Stepdaddy took him to Indonesia and he attended public school, happened to be a madrasa, well, the law in Indonesia is pretty clear. You don't get to go to the public schools unless you're a citizen. Imagine a nation so backwards that they would expect their national resources to go to aid their citizens. Anyway, if Barack Obama ever get his citizenship back, I think that's the big reason he had his college record sealed. I think he received aid as a foreign student. And I think that could very well invalidate any degrees he earned, as he attended under fraud and false pretense. I think that's why he wanted all that kept quiet. But that's not the point.